What to make of the latest Giannis chatter and some more takeaways from the preseason opener.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. My name is Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day. If you have not done so already, first piece of business, like and subscribe. Helps us out immensely. We've seen the channel grow significantly too. We talked about the interactions we've had with our everydayers throughout the offseason. Camille, the offseason, which by the way is done. Back in the saddle last night as we record this for year number 11 on the Bucks radio network. It was like riding the bike, where an annual tradition unlike any other, where it's always like 30 minutes before the broadcast begins. I'll exchange some messages with Dave Kane where we're both like, how do we do this again? Like, how many breaks are there? How long do we do this? When do we do the starting lineups? And then you just get one segment in and, oh yeah, this is how we do things here. Today's episode of the show brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. If that bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head over to FanDuel.com to get started. So where do you want to begin with this, Camille? Do we want to do part two of the postgame and some day after takeaways, or do we just want to rip the Band-Aid off?
Let's just rip the Band-Aid off, Justin, because if I had my way, this wouldn't even be a topic of conversation. But lo and behold, when we woke up Tuesday morning, it was like an article that came out at like 6 a.m. From ESPN with some more insight on the summer of Giannis that we just had and him looking elsewhere. And we finally got a team attached to it now.
Yeah, I mean, and as we speak, as we sit here and record this, here comes another article, this time from The Athletic and James Edwards. But yes, the team attached was the New York Knicks. So the reporting there being that the Knicks, I mean, I still don't know what to fully make from it. The Knicks engaged the Bucks, attempted to engage the Bucks in some trade discussions over the summer for Giannis. Didn't really go anywhere. I think it even said there was really no names exchanged, that you just got the sense of like, I don't think we're a match here. I mean, again, we continue to hear conflicting messaging here. I'm just going to state this, and we've talked about it on the show before. I know it's not anybody's choice and favorite thing to talk about. It's not fun for us either. I know it's easy to jump to this conclusion and pile on. I don't think there are any made up or fabricated reports from Shams Charania here. I don't know where the reports are coming from, and I think you could certainly bring into question the motives of those that are giving him this intel and reporting, but I don't think this is just clickbait fabricating and here's what we're doing here. And also, I mean, this is going to be our reality for the next 2 years, 3 years, however long Giannis is under contract. It's going to be an annual discussion where, from the makers of the Brett Favre retirement watch and Aaron Rodgers retirement and trade watch, brings you, here's Giannis's trade request every single offseason, or non-trade request there. Yeah, I mean, to see the name of the New York Knicks too, not very surprising, especially when you factor in Giannis has talked about how much he enjoys playing in the Garden. We always see a large contingency of Greek fans that are out there to support him. But, you know, kind of buried in the mix of all of this was, yeah, there's no trade with the Bucks and the Knicks in a two-team trade, given the assets the Knicks no longer have after the moves they made last summer.
I think there's a few ways to look at the report. And one of them is where you ended, which is like, well, the Knicks don't have anything to trade. And just because the Knicks don't have the assets, I don't think that means that they never picked up a phone like that. I believe that the Knicks probably did have the conversation, like, just because.
Hey, you saw what Joe Dumars gave up, so let's see if we can get the same from the Bucks.
Right, like, you never know. You never know. Even with Rob Pelinka and Nico last year, where the Luka trade, where everybody's looking like that was all that it took, and it started from just, let's have a conversation about this and what we have going on, how you're feeling about things. And for me, the Knicks destination, again, I've been on the bandwagon of you do not trade Giannis unless he asks for it. Otherwise, you continue to find ways to retool the team and find ways to be competitive around him. I still feel the exact same way. But if Giannis is the one who's going and saying like, hey, kind of interesting when New York is having, like, you have the you have the conversation about it. And ultimately, assets aren't there for a straight one-on-one trade. Like, you have to bring other teams in to make that possible. But more than anything, for me, this again is just heightens of like, hey, it's going to continue to get louder. I think, like, I thought that this summer might be like peak loudness, and I was like, man, we're probably going to hear it again next year too.
Next year, I mean, Camille, December, January, February, like,
like
this is it. This is our reality.
Like, it's not going to be a break in between of like, okay, well, you made it to the trade deadline, no more conversation about it for now, until, like, it feels like it's going to be loud just continuously until either Giannis himself says like, hey, nope, Milwaukee is where I want to be. And I don't expect that from him because he likes to use his leverage to make sure the team remains competitive. And I don't fault him for that. And then the other side of it is, again, like this upcoming summer with the contract extension he's going to be eligible for, where it's going to be loud. And I think for this season, it's just one, being able to enjoy basketball as much as you can with the noise around you, but also that pressure, I think, that feels of like, hey, if they get off to a slow start again, like another 2-8 start this year, I don't want to hear how loud that would get.
Yeah, and we talked about this on a recent show as well. It makes it all the more important that this team does not come out of the gates 2-8. And it's not just for having to deal with the Giannis conversation and chatter. I mean, it's fans, sure, it's an annoyance there, but the internal guys, the teammates too, and having to constantly deal with that and knowing what's coming next in terms of the questioning of, hey, do you think Giannis is going to ask out? Like, what's the latest with Giannis? Have you talked to him? Do you think he's committed to being here? That's what you're walking into if you're on the team. If the Bucks come out struggling here out of the gates for those first 10 game sample size last year, but I would say first 20 games, like, it's important for this team to what would you say is the baseline that you would say, if we can do this, I feel good that you'll start to grow a little bit, like 13-7,
somewhere in there. Like, it has to be a few games over 500, I think, during that stretch to be like, okay, it feels like they're building towards something. And also, I think the way that they get to those victories, where does this feel like it's sustainable, stackable, scalable? Like, can this be something that you lean on throughout the entire course of the year? Not like fluky wins along the way where you're like, well, really they'd be 9-11, but things broke their way. So I think it depends on the process along the way. But I think around that 13-7 mark is where you kind of need to be. You have to be a few games over 500. I think for me personally, to have my comfort be like, okay, the season got off to a pretty decent start. Now let's continue playing. But I do want to say this as well, and I've been saying it for a while. Try as much as you can to just enjoy the basketball. And I know it's going to be loud, especially with this article coming out. I mean, we started the show with it this week, but again, we're getting ready to kick off another year of Bucks basketball this year in a way that we haven't seen the team constructed around Giannis so far. And there's some excitement baked into that. Despite what all the other reports are saying, I would really just try to encourage Bucks fans to enjoy it. Because if this is the last year, we don't know if it is, but if it is, enjoy it. If it's not, enjoy whatever happens during all of the noise that's going on. But ultimately, man, like, I thought that we were far enough into preseason where it's like, we're done talking Giannis rumors. But
we made it.
Yeah, but we did not make it. We did not make it. So as much as you guys can, I would just say really try to focus on the basketball.
All right. We are going to transition into other things, lighter things that hopefully we don't lose a lot of you from here. So we'll get into some more thoughts on what we saw in game number 1 of the preseason coming up after this. Well, most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's your 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch's built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is here for you. They do the heavy lifting of everything for you, where you can link all of your accounts in minutes. You see clear data visuals and get smart categorization of your spending. Finally, feeling in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Monarch Money can help you identify whether or not you're saving as much as you thought. It helps you notice inefficient investment allocation and even find forgotten 401ks from past jobs. It also makes it easy to maximize your investments, increasing your savings rate, easily reviewing finances with your partner or even a financial advisor. So don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser and get half off your first year. That is 50% off the first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNBA. I hesitate to even bring it up since we started with a, I don't know, would you call it gloomy outlook here? But all right, let's just do one more, Camille. The notion that Giannis is moving out of the country to Greece too. Look, at the risk of getting too political, Giannis is from Greece. He spends his offseason in Greece. I don't think this has any impact on what NBA team Giannis desires to play for. I think it's beyond that. And, I could see why somebody that has dual citizenship at this point would want to leave and go elsewhere.
Yeah, and I mean, when you think about the arc of Giannis's career too, the age of his family and his children, if the reports that we are seeing are true, which Giannis did come out himself too, and seemingly
basically privacy,
just asking for his privacy for his family, like his kids didn't actually be famous. The article was even saying like with school, they believe the kid, which is that's a lot of information to put out there. But I think ultimately when you think about his family being in Greece, the age of his children, and where he is in his NBA career, where it's like he mentioned like, hey, I'm thinking about 36. We'll see where I'm at 36. And, if I still got it, we're going to keep going. If I don't got it, I'll be on an island in Greece somewhere. But ultimately, I think this is more so for his personal life, for his family. Like he is a Greek. he's Greek. Like that is where he is from. He wants his family to be immersed in the culture that he grew up in as well. So a move like that, if it's best for your family, you go and do it. It did make me think about like Dame's first year in Milwaukee, though, of like the adjustment of getting used to playing without seeing certain family members, we're used to seeing them. So that part of it, I am curious how that might personally just wear on Giannis. But ultimately, I hope he continues to make decisions that are best for him and his family, because ultimately, like that's what it all comes down to. And like you, I don't think that has much bearing on his NBA future, like what city he's in. That feels like it was something best for him and his family.
All right. On to the game.
The basketball. Yes, sir.
So you and Frank handled the recap of preseason game number 1. We'll wait and see if we see Giannis on Thursday in game 2 against the Pistons. But, there's a lot of intrigue and curiosity over what are we actually going to see with this group. And I think first and foremost, when we heard from Doc Rivers 90 minutes before the game started, and he gave us his starting lineup, and it was basically what we've always called for. Now, there is a caveat that I suppose we got to see if Giannis plays on Thursday and then who the starting lineup is there before we have any type of somewhat of an answer. And that is, so is Kyle Kuzma starting for Giannis, or is AJ Green starting in place of Giannis in this game?
And that's the question we don't have the answer to yet. My hope, at least, I won't speak for the hope of all Bucks fans or everyone
is that
around.
AJ Green was starting in place. Right?
Yeah, my hope is that Kuz was in the starting lineup in place of Giannis for this particular lineup in the preseason opener. But again, it's one game. It's the preseason. It's hard to glean much from it, but that's what I hope. That's what I hope. And one of the things from watching it, if they do go that route, that they have to be aware of is what I will say. And we've talked about it. Again, if you do start Kevin Porter Jr., AJ Green, and Gary Trent Jr., you're going to have a lot of shooting, a lot of speed there, but you're also going to lose a little bit of size. So it's like when you're going up against those wing defenders,
Yeah.
Whoever that is of that trio that's going to be checking that wing opponent, they got to be solid. And in the first preseason game, again, very small sample size. It's preseason. You take certain things with a grain of salt. But AJ Green got into foul trouble pretty quickly, trying to check Andrew Wiggins. So that piece of it was like, teams are going to try you. They're going to try you, especially with the size advantage. So you got to be stout because AJ Green is going to be too important offensively to be on the bench in foul trouble. And on the flip side for AJ Green in this game, absolutely love seeing him get 8 threes up in a half. Like that's what I wanted a game, 8 threes, seeing him do 8.5 without Giannis. That's the type of volume I'm talking about.
There's one other thing that jumped off the page to me, I think to anybody that was watching the game, hopefully listening to the game as well. You mentioned Miami and the tempo that they were bringing through their first preseason game. It increased here in this game on Monday night, but the Bucks played with a 109.5 pace, which again, it's not going to be close to 110 in the regular season, but I mean, what were they? Just a shade under 100 last year. I mean, if 101, can you get there? Perfect. I'll take that. Like, just continue to gradually increase that pace. We heard Giannis talk about it too. That, I don't know if it's just because I'm old now all of a sudden, or I'm, still getting over COVID, but man, these guys are out there and running. And that was the first thing that really stood out as you sat down to watch this game.
Yeah, the running for sure. And just at times too, the confidence that certain guys were playing for. I mentioned that one thing I continue to look for is like, who are the shot creators and who are the playmakers? And certain guys fit into that shot creation bucket that I expected to, like Kevin Porter Jr., like Gary Trent Jr. in particular, those two, where when the clock is winding down, it's kind of like I need to dance a little bit, try to get my own shot off. I trust the ball being in their hands. I mentioned on the post game last night, I was surprised at one point where Kevin Porter Jr. kicked to Myles Turner. And I was like, okay, a couple seconds left on the clock. Like, we're going to let him kind of be the guy to take this down to 0, get that final shot, which surprised me. But yeah, the speed that they play at and just the various guards that they brought into the game. Kevin Porter Jr. did his thing in this game. Wish he took a couple more threes, but ultimately, again, just the pressure he's able to put on the rim. I love seeing that from him, especially without any turnovers in this preseason game with 4 assists. Love that from him. Gary Trent looked really confident in this game. Loved him getting to the free throw line a few times as well, drawing them on 3-point shots. Like the guys who are going to be able to draw the fouls too comes into that shot creation bucket for me, because that's something that Dame was elite at, getting to the free throw line. We know that Giannis is, but I've been wondering who else on this team is going to be able to keep putting that pressure on the rim or putting pressure on their opponents to get to the free throw line themselves too. So seeing the early returns for Gary Trent Jr. with that, and Myles Turner too, was really good in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing that stood out the most about Myles Turner, which Doc has kind of talked about this before, and one of the things that they really like about Myles, a few of his teammates talking about it too, and I think a lot is going to be placed on him this year, not only scoring, but you kind of need him to be an agent of change for you, was, the amount of times we'd see Myles Turner just get out there and set a flare screen where the clock is kind of starting to drag and things are grinding to a halt of like, let's not do this. I'm just going to go set a screen, see if you can get a path to the basket. I'll flare out and have an open shot, but let's not just stand around and wait for somebody to shoot. That's not what we did in Indy. That's not what we're going to do here.
I love using the word agent of change because he is someone who can keep his teammates accountable too. Like, of course, you're going to hear the coaches saying, don't let the ball stick, move the ball, move the ball, move the ball. And that's what you should do. And when you have a teammate who's also preaching those same principles of like, hey, here we need to be sharper. We got to do this. Like having that on-court coach kind of feel to it of like, move the ball. This is what we need to be doing here. It's going to be big for the Bucks. And agent of change, I think, for Myles Turner is a good way to frame it for him, because he is going to be, I think, a really big voice on this team, and look to be a vet on this team off top, even though he's new to the squad, because he is one of the older guys here. He's respected. He just made it to the NBA Finals last year. So there is a certain level of cachet, I think, that comes around him and him being here. So I love agent of change. I think that's a perfect way to help describe what Myles is slowly bringing in the background to what the Bucks are trying to do offensively in particular.
All right. You knew I couldn't let the day go without shining a spotlight on somebody here. And then also, I want to throw one other thing out there at you for one of our other beloved players. So we'll wrap up the show with those two thoughts coming up after this. NFL season's here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, you put down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You'll love using FanDuel because of its ease and its quick payouts. It gives you so many ways to play. You can build parlays, line in player props, even follow the live lines during the action. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. So whether you're a casual fan, you love diving into the stats, or you're just following your fantasy team, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Look, I will acknowledge, if you've listened and stayed with us throughout the summer, I may have sold some stock that I owned, but I was still a founding member of Chris Livingston Enterprises. So seeing what my number one boy did in the fourth quarter, I'll say this, it at least makes it interesting of, okay, what are we going to do here with the other guy that has to get cut?
It does. It does. I was wondering what your reaction was in live time hearing Frank say that he was taking all of the Chris
I don't think it
Livingston
was safe for work.
But no, I mean, he looked good. I think the end of bench race battle, whatever you want to call it, is actually kind of interesting here because we've talked about the names associated and we got our first chance to see some of those guys get into the game. Well, not some, all of those guys. The only one who didn't play was Giannis. Doc really played 20 dudes in that preseason game yesterday. But at the end there, seeing Chris Livingston, he looked really secure in like his game, very confident. And
physically looked a little different too from what we saw in Summer League.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
Not as, I don't mean it even as a bet. Look, I would love to have the physique of Chris Livingston, but didn't look quite as boxy.
Looked a little slimmer. Like maybe he slimmed down and played a bit more on the wing or something along those lines. But I thought he looked good in the game yesterday. Ajax, really weird game, I thought, from him in the sense that like we are so used to wing Ajax, and it was a lot more like big Ajax in this game. And Doc mentioned that they had been trying. They played him at the 4 and the 5.
Simmons Ajax.
Where he mentioned like they've played him at 4 and 5 throughout training camp, just kind of see what that would look like and go with real small ball and see how that looks for him. And you know, he didn't look bad in the game here against the Miami Heat. It wasn't anything where you were watching him and you were like, he jumped off the page, but he was just doing a lot of the dirty work pretty consistently. He did have 3 fouls in the game, but he also had like 5 rebounds in there. I mean, he had a nice steal, which led to like a dunk. So like he had some good run during his time in the game, I thought.
And it is one game, so we got to see 4 of them. But these are 3 very important games now from here on out for Ajax, for Tyler Smith, for Chris Livingston. Sure, other guys. We just don't really know how to view the roster and just how unique it is that you released Chris Livingston, you re-signed him. Now we don't know if the organization views it this way, but I think we've all thrown him into this roster battle and assume that's the case. But maybe there's other names we're not even mentioning here that are out there basically fighting for their lives in terms of a spot on the roster. But it just goes back to the Summer League discussion of, I mean, looking good in the preseason doesn't tell me you are a bona fide NBA player, but looking bad tells me I think we might have to reconsider things. So to that point, in the Summer League and game 1 of preseason, that's exactly what you need to see from a player like Chris Livingston. Now let's see if you can get the same from other guys as well.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other guys like towards that end of the roster spot that not necessarily like this game alone that you were like, man, they showed out? Because again, very small sample size. The minute allocation was what it was in this particular one. But going forward, like are there any things that you're looking for from some of those end of roster guys? Like when Tyler Smith got in the game, for example, the shots were going up for him and they weren't necessarily falling, but just the process of him. Like for me, when I watch Tyler Smith, I want to see the shots going up. I want to see the boarding. I just want to see the strength, and if he's grown in that area somewhat there. Somebody like Andre Jackson Jr., who we've talked about a lot, the decision making, how quick can you be with the ball? Chris Livingston, what are you? What exactly are you? What can you defend? What can you do out there consistently? That's been interesting. And then you have like the vet with like Amir Coffey, who came in there in the game. Didn't like really impress one way or another. Just to me was kind of like in the game, just being a role player, doing what he does. But what are you kind of looking for over these last couple of games from some of these guys in particular?
Well, first of all, I was going to say, is this Frank I'm talking to with the Tyler Smith slander there that you started with?
Slander?
No. Look, you know what? We'll get back to this, but yeah, that's what I also wanted to point out. Look, just because we speak highly of somebody else doesn't mean it's against the other guy. Like we're going to talk about KPJ. We're going to talk about Ryan Rollins all throughout the season. Just because we're mentioning one doesn't mean we're down on the other. Yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, like, I'm pretty interested to see Pete Nance too. Like, it's an unorthodox shot and it takes a little bit to get it going, but his size, his skill set, and by the numbers, statistically, he had a good game in the opener, right? 15 points, 17 minutes, basically a point a minute. He and he and Tyler, 0 for 2. He and my boy Chris Livingston giving you that. So I'm curious to see what you can continue to develop. Obviously, knowing he's a two-way player, but just what can we reach here with Pete Nance? I don't think he's his brother, right? When you talk about Larry Jr. being, when healthy, the exact type of like backup stretch five that you would want in the league. But there's some aspects with the shooting and just kind of similar to Tyler Smith that in our brief flashes of seeing him, he's had a knack for being around the ball. So I'm intrigued to watch him for the remainder of the season. I think, going back to draft night, when as soon as the draft ended, night 2 of the draft, when it ended, and we got the word trickling out of what the Bucks were doing with undrafted players, everybody would have said, well, I can't wait to see Mark Sears. And he's kind of fallen by the wayside now with the battle for that final spot. But he's another guy that I'm curious to see, although it's not quite as heightened now, the need for him when you bring in a Cole Anthony in the offseason. You got KPJ and Ryan Rollins, but still seeing what can we develop there. If this is a guy that can become one of those, scoring punches and a second unit point guard for you in this league.
Yeah, and for Mark Sears, that's like going to have to be a thing for him because he is a smaller guard on top of that too, being only 6'1" there, 6 foot, whichever one you give it to him. But it's going to be important for him to figure out that aspect of his game for sure. Pete Nance definitely showed up in that game. I believe he was the leading scorer for the team too.
Yeah.
In this preseason debut, and he was knocking the threes down. And again, he fits not only like the type of bigs that you want to have in a modern NBA where they can stretch the floor, but when you're thinking about putting bigs next to Giannis, which again, as we started the show, we're going to continue to talk about this team and building around him as if he is part of it, as long as he is a part of it. It's the ideal type of big you need next to Giannis to be able to stretch the floor, show a little bit defensively as well. Again, Pete Nance didn't come out there Myles Turner like or anything like that, but it was consistent. Like it was very steady for him in this game. So that's what you want to see. You want to see growth from the players ultimately, because progress isn't linear all the time. And sometimes it goes all around, but ultimately younger players just need the opportunity to play the game and kind of see where it takes them. So yeah, Pete Nance definitely showed up in game 1.
Yeah. And look, I know this is probably not a popular thought, but I think we've heard all the right things from Doc Rivers leading up to this point throughout the offseason. And even talking about that player development and how important it is, and something that he says he kind of put in the ear of not that John Horst was opposed to it, but continuing to drive that message of like, we've got to do this. Like, not only do we got to change our roster and lean into playing differently, one of the ways that we're going to have to get there is we got to develop players. And that's where Jason Love, when he was hired last summer, is going to be very important for the group. Doc has singled him out as well of taking on an important piece. Spencer Rivers, too, plays a big role in that matter. So for all of those guys that we mentioned, like a Pete Nance and Mark Sears, and even guys like Chris Livingston, if they're still on the team, and Ajax, right? Those guys and what they're doing to continue to grow and evolve throughout the course of the season is going to be big for this team. Amir Coffey, no real takeaways. I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was having to like, oh, that's right, he's a lefty. Like that was the big dawning on me moment there in the Amir Coffey experience in game one. But we'll see what changes here in game two on Thursday night. As we wrap here, one other thing that I want to throw out there, and look, we got it out of the way already. Just because we mentioned one of the guys doesn't mean we're anti the other one. At the risk of doing that, I'm going to mention the name again in Ryan Rollins. We saw it last year, what he is certainly capable of doing defensively. And I think you saw it early in this game on Monday night, and Doc Rivers talked about it. If you listened to the radio broadcast or saw his post game, couldn't help himself before he eventually did, of like, I probably shouldn't make that joke, but talking about Ryan Rollins and that second unit overall, but their impact on the game defensively and what that did for kickstarting the pace that we referenced was just under 110. The other thing, Camille, it's preseason. They forced 23 turnovers, and the number was piling up early in this game. Last year, they averaged, I think it was 12 and a half that they forced for the opponent. We've heard all summer long they want to be aggressive, and I think Ryan Rollins, we're assuming he's not starting, is going to be a big piece of that. At the risk of getting laughed at and knowing this is bordering on crazy, do you envision a scenario where, the 7-foot wingspan, the defensive ability that he has, I think he's going to be unleashed this season out of necessity and out of we need guys to grow, and there's something here. Do you think there's any scenario where we could get to the point that we're talking about Ryan Rollins as not first team, but at least in the conversation of could this guy be all defense second team?
Ooh. There's some tough guards you got to beat out to be in that conversation.
But it's positionless. But yeah,
that is true.
A ton of guards.
That is true. This year, I would be surprised if it happened this year, because I generally feel like things happen a year a little bit later. Like, okay, this was the attention year. Now people know the name, and now they're going to be paying closer attention. Maybe even refs give you a little bit more leeway once your reputation continues to increase defensively there too. So I think Ryan Rollins has all defensive potential. I would be surprised if this year he hit it. Even though there's a lot of opportunity for him, I think on this roster, I think it might be like a year away from him officially making the team, but I think he could be somebody who Bucks fans champion and somebody who's going to be immensely valuable to the Bucks with what he can do defensively.
I think that's a ceiling. I would agree with you. I don't think it's this year, but I do think
he has the potential.
I think we're going to hit the point where he's in the conversation. He has the potential to be inserting himself in the conversation where you're not going to be looking at like, man, defensive player of the year, but I think he has the tools that he can be in that conversation when given the consistent playing time. And in some ways, I'm not comparing him to this player, full stop here, but I believe they entered the league the same year, and they're pretty similar in skill set, but we saw a massive leap last year with pieces that fit around him and just being in a different system for Dyson Daniels, who all of a sudden becomes like, wow, is this the premier perimeter defender in the league? I think he finished second in defensive player of the year, was all defense. He wasn't there the year prior. So is is this Ryan Rollins starts to kind of show us what he's capable of, and you find something there to harness that in next year, the following years, like this is a guy that's in the conversation for, hey, this is a guy capable of being an all defense player.
Yeah, I could definitely see it going that way. Daniels had the advantage of a bit more playing time than I think that Rollins will be getting in Milwaukee this upcoming year. But as situation, opportunity, those are the things that really kind of open the door for you to start getting that acknowledgement. And he's going to have a role for the Bucks this year, even if he's coming off the bench behind Kevin Porter Jr., because I can see many situations where Ryan Rollins is closing games for the Bucks, even alongside Kevin Porter Jr. in certain situations too. So there are so many different ways you can go with him, and he's a young player, and the tools are there. Now it's like, how consistently can you put these performances together? And I think that's what this year is about for Ryan Rollins.
Yeah, and look, I agree with that. His minutes jump massively. Dyson Daniels we're talking about here, but when Ryan Rollins was thrust into that role, it wasn't like a token start. That's when we saw those numbers start to go up. Like he averaged just about 3 times as many minutes per game. The efficiency stayed the same. It actually went up on his threes and trips to the free throw line. The counting numbers increased as well, as you would expect. So he's shown, albeit in limited stretches, he can handle having more placed on him. So that to me, again, it doesn't mean we're down on KPJ, but he to me is the most fascinating guy that I am watching this year for the Bucks.
Yeah. And it's for a bit of a different skill set too than Kevin Porter Jr. I think Kevin Porter Jr. can do things defensively as well, but I'm more so excited about the shot creation, his ability to touch paint, kick out for teammates, create for others and himself than I am for Ryan Rollins in that particular role. But defensively, what Ryan Rollins can do, I'm really excited to see what that
You're going to
like.
ask Ryan Rollins to be a defensive dog. You're going to ask KPJ to ideally, you're going to be our second best scorer.
And both are going to have to do the other side of the ball activities as well. But it's like primarily though, here's what I'm tasking you with.
Well, leave your thoughts, whether or not I won't say we, because I don't know how fully on board you were with that, Camille, but the ceiling for Ryan Rollins and anything else that we addressed earlier on the show, if you want to dip down into that bucket as well. We got one more preseason game this week, Thursday night in Milwaukee against the Pistons. First time in the old digs since April. Wow, 6 months ago. So if you're there at Fiserv Forum, by all means, stop by the booth and say hello. Dave would love to see you and catch up with you as well. I don't even remember the section we're in. I think it's 117. We're not hard to find. So say hello if you're there. We'll have a post-game recap of that one as well. That'll do it for today's show. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.